But none of those things are what make this game different than any other game you've ever played before. We have this set of things that I call Holy Grails. And these are things that we have always wanted to put into a virtual world, an MMO. And, there's lots of reasons why we didn't do these things: lack of resources, lack of time, maybe lack of intestinal fortitude. Whatever it was, we never got around to putting these things in. And so what I'm going to do right now is go through the series of 4 different Grails and show you exactly why they make a huge difference in our game. And the first Grail that I want to talk about is changing the core game. And what that means is, well, let's put it this way. For 35 years, we've been playing a lot of Dungeons & Dragons. I mean a lot of it. And when I say Dungeons & Dragons, what I mean by that is the core game of that is basically you pick a class, you go out and kill stuff, and unlock a tech tree of abilities, and we've all done that a lot of different times. So we didn't want to just reboot the lore and reboot the way the world looked and maybe add some new adventures. What we wanted to do was give you a whole new gaming experience that you could discover and explore as you played the game. And so to start that, we're embracing a new concept which we call multiclassing. Oh, you haven't heard it yet. What multiclassing is when you start the game, there's 8 different classes that you can pick from. Each class has a couple of weapons that you can choose and a handful of character abilities that go with it. And then as you go out into the world and you start exploring, as you do adventures and as you talk to different NPCs, you'll find opportunities to acquire new classes, to collect all these different classes that are out there. And there's more than 40 or so classes out there in the world for you to explore and find. And as you find those classes, you can play any of them at any time, and you can mix and match the different character abilities to create a class that's exactly what you want to play. So the more classes you find, the more you can customize your character. Now, your weapons make a big difference. They're one of the class-defining things in the game. So as you go through and you find these different classes, each class has a couple of weapons. Let's say, for example, that you pick the warrior. The warrior has like a big halberd and a longsword. And when he uses the halberd, he can use these big room-sweeping clearing attacks, or he can slam the half down on the ground and create a shockwave. But when he switches to the longsword, his abilities change. And he can then basically be able to attack a single thing and do a lot of damage, or perhaps do some melee blocks and parries. So, depending upon what class you pick, your weapons will change to fit that class, and the abilities on those weapons are different. So as you change classes, you will also change your core gameplay, and you will constantly be exploring as you move through this game. And we have a lot of weapons. In fact, one of the things that you'll find as you go through and you start advancing your characters is that you can mix and match little pieces on those weapons to actually change what they do. And in fact, it's a very visual thing, and when we get around to talking about crafting, you'll see that the crafters have a lot to do with this game. Well, let's go through that for now. Okay, so we've talked about these abilities. Now it's time to see some of them in action. So let's start with the human wizard, Jelena. That's a chromosphere. Now, once in a while, she'll get bushwhacked and need to get out of dodge. So she has a vortex ability. And what the vortex does is it slaps all the enemies into the same spot she was, teleports her backwards, and then blows them up. Let's take a look at the warrior abilities also. Check in with Kishar. Now, Kishar has something I'm going to talk a little bit because he's quite loud. I'll talk a little bit. He has this really cool ability called Unstoppable Force, which is a charge attack. And it looks like this. And then that's Forceful Blow. Now, he also has a Shield Bash, which is great for knocking opponents back in an arc in front of him. It's also handy for sweeping up corpses. So anyway, that's some of the abilities in the game. And so that's the way the dynamic look of the game is. That's the way the special effects look and everything like that. And it kind of ties us over to Grail number 2.